I never used to notice the way people looked at each other until that summer. It was the kind of summer where the heat didn't break, even at night, the kind where fans did little more than move the warm air around and the ice in your glass melted faster than you could drink it. I'd just turned 24, renting the small studio on the lower floor of my grandfather's old house. After he passed, my parents kept the property, and I moved in because it was cheaper than anywhere else in the city. I thought it'd be quiet. Simple. Then she moved in upstairs. Lara. She wasn't supposed to stay long, just until her divorce papers were finalized. My mother called her a family friend, but I'd never met her before. Mid-40s, sharp but soft somehow, the kind of woman who didn't dress to be noticed but was, anyway. She wore loose white shirts and tied her hair up carelessly, like she was always mid-thought about something else. We didn't talk much at first. Just polite nods on the staircase, passing hellos in the driveway. But I noticed the little things, how she always carried the same chipped blue thermos. How she paused before unlocking her door, like she was gathering herself. How sometimes, late at night, I'd hear her pacing above me. I told myself I wasn't paying attention. It was a Tuesday when everything started to shift. I'd stopped by the small laundromat 2 streets over. Not because I needed to, I had a washer in my unit, but because I liked the noise there, the hum of the machines filling up the silence I couldn't stand some nights. I was sitting on the hard plastic chair, scrolling through my phone, when I heard someone laugh softly behind me. Didn't think I'd find you here. I turned. Lara, holding a basket full of neatly folded clothes, hair damp from the humidity, the faintest hint of vanilla on her skin. You do your laundry here? I asked, trying to sound casual. Washer upstairs is broken, she said, setting the basket down on the counter. Or maybe I just needed the excuse to get out. We talked, or tried to. It wasn't smooth. I asked if she was settling in upstairs. She said she still couldn't sleep in the new bed. I joked about the creaky pipes in the house. She smiled, but it faded quickly, like she didn't want to let it linger too long. And then, in the middle of some silence, she looked at me. Really looked. Not the passing glance of neighbors. Longer. Steadier. Something pulled at the air between us, but neither of us said a thing. Back at the house, I caught myself pausing outside her door before heading downstairs. I didn't knock. Didn't say goodnight. But my hand hovered for a moment longer than it should have against the railing. That night, I sat on my bed with my phone in my hand. I opened a blank message, typed hey, deleted it. Tried again. Deleted that, too. And just when I'd given up, my phone lit up. A new message. From her. Can't sleep either? I stared at it for a long time. Something about it was ordinary. Harmless, even. But I knew, the way you just know, that nothing would be the same after tonight. I didn't answer her text right away. I stared at the screen until the brightness faded, then locked the phone and tossed it onto the pillow beside me. It felt dangerous, stupid, even, to respond. She was older. Divorced. Staying in my grandfather's house, the one place that had always felt steady. And yet, a minute later, I picked it back up. Yeah, I typed. Guess it's one of those nights. No reply came. I waited anyway. Eventually, I fell asleep to the faint sound of rain against the windows, my phone still in my hand. The next morning, I found her sitting on the front steps, sipping from that chipped blue thermos. The air was heavy and damp after the rain, carrying the smell of wet earth and something faintly metallic from the old pipes. You're up early, I said. She glanced over, squinting against the soft sunlight. Couldn't sleep. Then, after a beat, thanks for replying last night." I nodded but said nothing. She didn't either. We sat there in silence for a while, the kind that isn't uncomfortable but feels charged with something unspoken. Finally, she set the thermos down beside her and said quietly, "This house used to be my escape when I was younger. Back when your grandfather was alive." That caught me off guard. "You knew him?" She smiled faintly. "Knew him well. He helped me through a lot back then." Her voice trailed off, almost like she regretted saying it out loud. Funny how life circles back, isn't it? I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. But in my head, I was stuck on the thought of her being here years ago, younger, softer maybe, leaning on my grandfather for comfort. Later that evening, she knocked on my door. "I need a hand with something," she said, holding up a box. "Too heavy to move alone." I followed her upstairs, into the apartment I'd only ever seen from the outside. It smelled faintly of lavender and tea leaves. The place was small but warm, half-unpacked boxes, a few framed photos leaning against the walls, a folded sweater draped over the arm of the couch. I helped her push the box into the corner, brushing past her shoulder in the narrow hallway. It was nothing, really, just a moment of closeness, but I felt it all the way down my spine. She thanked me softly, almost like she wasn't looking at me when she said it. But when I turned, her gaze was steady, holding mine longer than before. Something shifted in that silence. I don't know why that moment stayed with me, maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. I started noticing the small things first. The way she always paused before unlocking her door, like she was holding on to some thought she couldn't share. The way her laugh would slip out unexpectedly, soft and short, like she didn't mean to give it away. The way my own chest felt heavier whenever I heard her pacing above me at night. It was quiet. But it was there. One night, I came back late from a freelance meeting downtown. The house was quiet, except for the faint sound of running water upstairs. I walked into the kitchen to grab a glass of water, and nearly bumped into her. She stood barefoot near the sink, hair damp, wearing a loose gray t-shirt and soft drawstring pants. She froze when she saw me, hands still resting on the counter. "Sorry," I said quickly. "Didn't know anyone was." "You're fine," she cut in, her voice low. Then softer, "Couldn't sleep again." We stood there in silence, the only sound the hum of the old refrigerator. I leaned against the doorway, trying to seem casual, but my pulse betrayed me. Finally, she broke the quiet. "I was making tea. Do you want some?" I hesitated. I should have said no. Instead, I nodded. The kettle whistled softly, filling the silence between us. She handed me a mug, chipped on the handle, just like her thermos, and sat on the edge of the counter, legs crossed loosely. "You know," she said, almost to herself, "your grandfather used to sit here late at night too. He'd tell me stories I didn't want to hear at the time. About patience. About waiting for the right moment." I sipped the tea to hide my face. "Did you listen?" "Not then," she said with a faint smile. "Maybe now." Something flickered across her expression when our eyes met, something quiet but sharp. And I knew, without saying it, that I wasn't the only one holding my breath. The spell broke when the front door creaked open. It was Mrs. Harris from next door. She liked checking in since my grandfather passed. She leaned in, waving cheerfully before heading back outside. But it was enough. Lara set her mug down. "I should get some sleep," she said, sliding off the counter without meeting my eyes. I nodded, though neither of us moved at first. She walked past me slowly, brushing my arm as she did. "Not an accident." "Couldn't have been." I turned slightly, as if to say something, anything, but the words caught in my throat. She paused at the bottom of the stairs, one hand on the railing, back turned. For a second, I thought she might turn around. She didn't. I don't know why I remember the weight of that moment more than anything else, the half step, the half breath, the half confession. We didn't touch. Not then. But it felt like we almost had. It was late Sunday afternoon when she asked if I wanted to walk. The air was heavy, swollen from the heat, and the street smelled faintly of wet asphalt from the storm earlier. We didn't talk much as we moved down the quiet lane lined with old jacaranda trees, their petals scattered across the cracked pavement. I shoved my hands into my pockets, trying to act normal. She walked beside me, sipping from that chipped thermos again, her hair loosely tied and falling out of place in soft strands around her face. Halfway down the block, she stopped. Sat on the old wooden bench near the edge of the park. "You're quiet today," she said finally, glancing at me. I sat beside her, keeping just enough distance to pretend it didn't mean anything. "Just tired," I lied. She nodded, but I felt her watching me. Or maybe avoiding something? I turned to her then, met her gaze, steady, unflinching. My chest felt tight. "You make it sound like you already know." A soft laugh escaped her, dry and humorless. "I don't. That's the problem." Silence stretched between us, broken only by the low hum of cicadas. Finally, she said, barely above a whisper, "You shouldn't look at me the way you do." The words landed like weight in my stomach. I stared at the ground, unsure if she wanted me to agree or argue. "I don't," I said anyway, too quickly. She smiled faintly, shaking her head. "You do." I wanted to say something, deny it, explain it, anything, but the words jammed somewhere behind my teeth. My palms itched, restless, useless. Then she sighed, leaning back against the bench. "You remind me of him sometimes," she said softly. I froze. "My grandfather?" She nodded, eyes distant. "He used to look at me like that too. Like he wanted to understand me more than anyone else did." The thought tangled inside me, strange and heavy. My throat went dry. "Is that bad?" "I don't know," she said, finally turning to me, her voice softer now. "That's what scares me." Something cracked open between us in that moment, unspoken but undeniable. Her hand rested loosely on the bench, close enough that if I shifted just slightly, my fingers would brush hers. I stared at the space between us, feeling the seconds drag like hours. I thought about leaning closer. I thought about what it would mean. I thought about every reason not to. Then, in a voice so quiet I almost missed it, she said, "You shouldn't be here." But she didn't move away. I turned toward her slowly, searching her face for something, permission, rejection, anything. Her eyes met mine and held, steady and unreadable. The question hovered between us, unspoken but alive. Was this the moment everything would change? After that night on the bench, everything felt sharper. Not louder. Not clearer. Just sharper, like the air between us carried something fragile we couldn't name. For a while, we fell into a quiet rhythm, shared glances on the stairs, late-night tea, brief conversations that felt heavier than they should have. And then, just as suddenly, she changed. It started small. She stopped leaving her door open when she cooked, the way she used to. Stopped lingering in the hallway after grabbing her mail. Stopped texting back right away, sometimes not at all. At first, I thought I'd done something. Replayed every moment in my head like a bad recording, searching for the thing I said, the look I gave, the silence I didn't fill. Nothing made sense. Days passed like that. Then one evening, I came home early and found her car missing from the driveway. No lights upstairs. It wasn't strange, not really, except something inside me sank anyway. I went back to scrolling mindlessly, pacing my apartment, listening for her footsteps above. 3 nights later, she knocked. When I opened the door, she stood there in a loose cardigan, holding that chipped thermos in both hands like it was something to anchor her. "I wasn't avoiding you," she said, unprompted, eyes fixed somewhere past my shoulder. I nodded, unsure what to say. She hesitated, shifting her weight. "My ex came by," she admitted finally. "We talked." The words sat between us like glass, fragile, dangerous. "Oh," I managed, trying to sound neutral. She gave the faintest smile. "It's complicated. He wants to try again." My chest tightened, but I forced myself to nod, my voice flat. "And you?" She hesitated just long enough to answer without answering. "I don't know yet." After that, something inside me folded. I stopped staying up late for tea. Stopped lingering near the stairs. Stopped looking for her shadow in the hallway light. I told myself it wasn't about me. That it couldn't be. But some nights, I'd still catch myself listening for the sound of her pacing above, waiting without meaning to. One night, I opened my phone, typed, "I miss our talks." I stared at the words until the letters blurred, then deleted them. Tried again. Deleted that too. I locked the phone, tossed it onto the bed, and sat there in the dark, the hum of the old ceiling fan filling the silence she used to occupy. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. It was late when it happened. I'd just come back from a grocery run, arms heavy with bags, when I saw her sitting on the front steps. No thermos this time. No cardigan. Just Lara, knees drawn up, head resting lightly against the wooden railing, as though she'd been there for a while. The porch light cast her face in half shadow, soft and unreadable. "Hey," I said carefully. She looked up, eyes tired but steady. "Hey." I set the bags down and leaned against the railing, leaving a space between us I didn't know how to close. For a while, neither of us spoke. The sound of cicadas filled the silence, steady and relentless. Finally, she exhaled, slow and uneven. "He asked me to move back in," she said, voice low, almost flat. I nodded, even though something inside me clenched. "And, are you going to?" Her eyes stayed on the driveway. I told him I needed time. I didn't say anything. Didn't trust myself to. She shifted slightly, turning toward me, studying my face like she was searching for something there. "You've been distant," she said finally. I forced a small laugh, though it sounded hollow even to me. "Thought maybe that's what you wanted." Her gaze dropped to her hands. "I thought it would make this easier," she admitted quietly. But it didn't. I stared at her, waiting for the next sentence that didn't come. Somewhere in my chest, something cracked open. "You make it really hard," I said finally, the words escaping before I could catch them. She looked up. "What?" "To be around you," I said softly. "To pretend I don't," I stopped myself there. She didn't push me to finish. Just sat there, letting the unfinished words hang between us. The silence stretched until it felt like the night itself was holding its breath. Finally, she whispered, "I don't know if I can give you what you want." I swallowed hard. "I don't know if I want anything." "Not, really." I stopped again. It was useless trying to name something that didn't want to be named. And then, very carefully, she reached out and placed her hand over mine. Not tentative, not accidental. Just quiet, deliberate contact. My chest felt weightless and heavy all at once. We sat there like that, hands resting together on the worn wooden step, until she finally said, barely audible, "I'm scared." I nodded once, holding her gaze. "Me too." We didn't kiss. We didn't promise anything. But when she finally said, softly, "Okay," it felt like the closest either of us had come to choosing. It's strange how quickly things settle after they don't. Weeks passed. The late summer heat gave way to softer mornings, and the cicadas finally went quiet. Somewhere in that shift, Lara and I fell into a rhythm neither of us defined but both understood. No confessions. No promises. Just small things. She started leaving her door open again when she cooked. The scent of sautéed garlic or toasted bread would drift down the stairs into my apartment, subtle and familiar. Sometimes, she'd text me at 8:47 a.m. exactly, "Coffee's on." I'd show up with my chipped black mug, and she'd hand me tea instead, teasing me about my caffeine habit. Neither of us said anything about how natural it felt, sitting there by her window, watching the condensation beat along the glass, pretending the world wasn't shifting under our feet. Other mornings, we'd meet on the bench near the park. Same place as before, same cracked paint beneath our palms. Sometimes we'd talk. Sometimes we didn't. The silence stopped being sharp, it started feeling like space. Space we'd both been missing without knowing it. One evening, I asked about her ex. She was sitting cross-legged on the couch, holding that chipped blue thermos like always. "We're done," she said simply. No bitterness. No ceremony. Sometimes letting go doesn't look dramatic. It just looks quiet. I nodded, not pushing. Something unknotted in my chest anyway. There wasn't a moment where we became us. No line we crossed that changed everything overnight. It happened gradually, in pieces, the way her hand brushed mine when she passed me the sugar, the way my shoulder leaned closer when we watched the rain together on the porch, the way we started pausing at each other's doors without meaning to. One night, after weeks of dancing around it, I found myself on the steps again, groceries at my feet, her standing in the doorway with damp hair and soft shadows under her eyes. Neither of us said a word. She just reached for my hand, not tentative, not careful this time, and I let her. That was it. Months later, we still haven't said the words out loud. And maybe we don't need to. Now, she brews tea instead of coffee most mornings. I still drink it, even though I complain every time. The chipped thermos sits on the counter like a quiet witness, a callback to every pause and every almost we survived to get here. I catch myself looking at her sometimes, sitting by the window, head tilted in thought. She always senses it and glances back, eyebrows raised, like she knows exactly what I'm thinking but wants me to say it first. I never do. I just smile. And she smiles back. It's enough. I don't know if this is love, not in the way stories usually tell it. But it feels real. Ours. Quiet. Earned. And maybe that's better. Engagement close. Did this story stay with you? Yellow heart, what kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next? Tell me in the comments, your idea might be the next one I write.